all of them. We'll cover the whole thing in one sitting. I thought about covering 2nd and 3rd John together, and then I decided, well, there's enough good stuff in both of them, but we'll do them one at a time. So Lord willing, we'll get 2nd John tonight, 3rd John next week. Hopefully, tomorrow or Friday, I'll get on YouTube and collect all the 1st John lessons into one package, and then you can just go on there and click on one thing and it gives you the whole list of lessons from 1st John. We've had an uptick lately of people that are looking at the lessons later on YouTube, so hopefully that will continue. I know of one particular person in Alva that decided they were going to start a study of the Old Testament, so they started in Genesis where we were a year ago, close to a year ago, and so they're behind us, but they're catching up. All right, 2nd John, we're going to read the whole thing and then go back and take a look at some of the possibilities here. The elder, to the lady chosen by God and to her children, whom I love in the truth, and not I only, but also all who know the truth, because of the truth which lives in us and will be with us forever. Grace, mercy, and peace from God the Father and from Jesus Christ the Father's Son will be with us in truth and love. It has given me a great deal of joy to find out that some of my children, or some of your children, are walking in the truth, just as the Father commanded us. And now, dear lady, I am not writing you a new command, but one we have had from the beginning. I ask that we love one another. And this is love, that we walk in obedience to his commands. As you have heard from the beginning, his command is that you should walk in love. I say this because many deceivers who do not acknowledge Jesus Christ as coming in the flesh have gone out into the world. Any such person is the deceiver and the Antichrist. Watch out that you do not lose what we have worked for, but that you may be rewarded fully. Anyone who runs ahead and does not continue in the teaching of Christ does not have God. Whoever continues in the teaching has both the Father and the Son. If anyone comes to you and does not bring this teaching, do not take them into your house or welcome them. Anyone who welcomes them shares in their wicked work. I have much to write to you, but I do not want to use paper and ink. Instead, I hope to visit with you and talk with you face to face, so that our joy may be complete. The children of your sister, who is chosen by God, send their greetings. All right. The first question that usually pops up is, are we talking about an individual or are we talking about a group of individuals? When he says, to the lady chosen by God. If you look at it just at face value, it seems like he's talking to a particular person, some woman that he knows. And then to your children, whom I love in the truth. So he knows this woman, he knows the children. But most commentators believe that we're not talking about a particular woman, we're talking about a church. That John is writing to a church, and that the children of the church are the members of the congregation. Now, it may well be that he has in mind the leadership of the church when he talks about to the lady, that he means the church in general, but to those who are leading the church. But in general, it seems that he's talking about a particular congregation and the people who worship there. Why would he do that? Well, they think that the persecution was increasing, so that rather than John writing to someone and calling them by name, that he uses this as kind of a side door approach. I'll just write and say, to the beloved lady and her children. When they get it, they'll know that I'm talking about the congregation and the people who worship there. On the contrary to that, look at 3rd John real quick. In 3rd John, the first verse says, the elder, to my dear friend Gaius, whom I love in the truth. And all through that particular letter, which of course is only 14, 15 verses long, he names names. He calls people particular, some good and some bad, that he wants guys to be aware of, some that were doing good things and some that were not. He wanted guys to be familiar with both. So he does, at least in the 3rd John, call names and very specific. And that has led some people to think that perhaps the person we're talking about here is not a congregation but an individual. The children of your sister send their greetings would be Christians from another congregation. Even in my lifetime, I've received mail from other churches that talk about your sister congregation. Right? You know, all the sister congregations in Wheeler County are going to get together and have a barbecue or whatever. They refer to themselves that way, and so it's not unusual, even in our vernacular, to talk about it that way. But we're not sure whether it's an individual or a congregation. Look back at 3 John again, in verse 3. In 2 John, he says, I was really happy when I ran into some of your children that were walking in the faith. Really makes me happy to see your children walking in the faith. In 3 John 3, he says, 33, where does it start? It gave me great joy when some believers came and testified about your faithfulness to the truth, telling how you continue to walk in it. I have no greater joy than to hear that my children are walking in the truth. So, in 3 John, we're going to assume that he's not talking about an actual offspring of his, that is his natural born son, but a son in the church, a son in the Spirit. There's probably, I don't know, 2 or 3 folks running around that would claim me as their father in the faith, and I claim them as my children in the faith. There's a special relationship that develops sometimes when you're serving together and working together. And maybe John's talking about that. But in 2 John, he mentions your children. I've heard good things about your children. And in 3 John, he says, I've heard people telling me good things about my children. So, different set of folks, I assume. All right, the main theme. What would you say is the main theme of 2 John? Did anything grab your attention, particularly as he starts out? There's a word that just keeps popping up. Love is always going to be in there, right? And truth. There it is. 2 John is an invective to hang on to the truth. And again, he says the same things that we've already looked at in 1 John. Love each other. Don't listen to the Gnostics. Be faithful. All those things that we've already talked about. But in 2 John, he goes just a hair farther, and he says, make sure that you don't help these people. If you allow them to stay in your home, then you're buying in and helping the things that they're doing that are against the church, that are against Christ. So don't do anything that's going to be helping them to spread this false doctrine. Make sure that you are careful to whom you show hospitality. Could that be possible in our generation? Well, sure. There's lots of opportunities for us to help other folks financially, right? Different ministries from around the nation. We don't know them, haven't met them. We get requests from people who say, here's our great ministry, we need your help to do it. But we don't know them. We don't know what their objectives are. We don't know what their actual teaching is like. We just know that they say that they're ministers of Christ and they want us to help them. So we have to be somewhat discerning about who's our sister congregations, who are our close relatives in the Lord, and not just help everybody that thinks that they ought to be helped. So congregationally, it's nice that we get visits from time to time, which, by the way, we've got hopefully one coming up in September. I need to find out exactly when he's able to come. But there's it's great for us to know where that money's going. You know, when we send them a check, what are they doing with those proceeds? Is it something that you and I would do if we had the opportunity? Is it something that we would find useful to the kingdom? Or is it something that we would have a problem with? If we have a problem with it, then we ought not be supporting whatever work it is that they're doing. So the main theme of 2 John is basically hang on to the truth and don't help false teachers. If they come to you asking for help and you know that they're a false teacher, don't help them, because then you're just aiding them in their false teaching. Now, there's a slightly different idea.
Let me ask you something
Sure.
about this second John. It's, let me find it now. Anyway, it says, walking in the truth, said some of you are. That's just some of them. What happened to the rest of them?
Well, my guess is the Gnostics happened to them.
That's what I was wondering, because there's no more mention of it.
Yeah, that's definitely the main problem that John is bumping up against in his writings. People that were saying that Jesus did not really come in the flesh, he wasn't really the Son of God. And I assume that that's who he's talking about when he says don't help these false teachers. It's a pretty tunnel visioned kind of thing that was going on in John's world. He's not being real broad in the things he's talking about. He has this one particular problem, and he's trying to get them to recognize that problem and stay away from it when they can.
That says it giveth me great joy to find some of the truth.
Right. Yeah, it could be that he's just saying that he ran into some folks. You know, it may be that all of them are faithful, but he ran into some of them at the grocery store. You know, he didn't get to see all of them. One of the things that's really enjoyable, and sometimes I don't know them until they remind me who they are, but people that you've known in other congregations, in other places, or that you've only known about their work and haven't really met them personally, and then they show up, and you get to visiting with them, and you find out that you know a lot of the same people, and you've helped in the same ministries and that sort of thing. I love that sort of thing because the brotherhood is really kind of a small group of people, but there's millions of us, right? It's a small world. It's a small brotherhood, but there's millions of us. And it's neat to run into folks and then find out who they know that you know. So it may just be that John ran into some folks, and he says, I found some of your people, and they were walking in the truth, so that made me happy. Again, in 3 John, he says, I've heard reports about some of my children walking in the faith that just, he got some particular intel about some of the folks that he had a chance to teach at some point. But there's a slightly different thing that's going on here. He says that there are some who are running ahead and not remaining in the teaching of Christ. Running ahead and not remaining. Now, in the modern church, there's been some preaching and some writing done that talks about people who are modernistic, right? People who are adding things into the church that don't belong there. Instrumental music, women in leadership, homosexual leadership, those kind of things. That they're going beyond the teaching of Christ when they bring those things in. The other possibility is that there were some in John's day who had gone beyond the teachings that Jesus gave. Right? So they knew stuff that Jesus said, and they took what Jesus said and then just added things to that. So it was somewhat a Christ-centered group, but they also added to that more things. The other possibility is that it is the teachings about Christ that were the problem, that they're adding to the teachings about Christ. So John would say, we know Jesus, he came in the flesh, he was the Son of God, he died, he rose on the 3rd day, ascended back to the Father. But somebody may have been adding to that and saying, well, here's what John says about Jesus, but here's what we say about Jesus. So going beyond may not have been adding more liberal or more modernistic thinking to it. It may have just been that they were denying the things that John had said and adding in their own kind of teaching to what John had said. There are folks in our generation that feel sorry for us because we don't go beyond what's written. They feel like that we've done ourselves and maybe even the world and the church a disservice by not adding things that are not in Scripture. Their reasoning sounds reasonable, that maybe if we did this, we could get more people to listen, right? So if we add instrumental music, maybe people that really like guitars will show up and they'll hear the message. But if we have to go beyond what's written to create an atmosphere for somebody to hear what's written, there seems to be a problem there for me. The same thing is true about cultural things. The culture changes, therefore we have to change to match the culture. The culture of Jesus' day was not that different from our culture. Roman society was quite similar, unfortunately, to modern American society. There are a lot of the same problems, a lot of the same sinful activities that were going on. And if just being human was what we were looking for, we could get that done. But we're not just looking to be human. We're looking to be Christians. And to be Christians, we have to follow those things that were given to us by those who knew Christ. Christ taught us, his apostles taught us, we follow that, and we don't add things to that. So, in a modern sense, we might interpret what John is saying to mean, to go beyond what Christ taught, or to go beyond Christ's teachings or the teachings of Christ. To be, trying to find a way to rope in more people to the message. But to me, anyway, the message is sullied by the act of trying to bring people in that way. So, anybody have thoughts on that? Mm-hmm. Right. It's at the end of Revelation. Yeah. Yeah. There's always been a part of man that thinks that we can figure it out better than God did, or that if it's not prohibited, then it must be allowed. If God had not wanted us to do it, he would have said specifically, don't do this. Well, can you imagine how long the Bible would be if every single thing that God didn't want us to do was excluded piece by piece by piece? Hundreds of thousands of different things that people have come up with to try to make it work because they don't think the Word is powerful enough. And again, the Gnostics denied Jesus came in the flesh. They denied what we hold to be the truths of the gospel. His death, burial, and resurrection. They denied that stuff. If we set aside the truth in search of something more palatable, something more attractive, then we're not doing anybody any favors. All right. Any other thoughts on 2 John? We haven't been going very long. Do you want to go ahead and look at 3 John? Well, yes, you do. I knew you would. Okay. 3 John. 3 John's a little more specific. Like I said, a little more name-calling in 3 John. The elder to my dear friend Gaius, whom I love in the truth. Dear friend, I pray that you may enjoy good health, and that all may go well with you, even as your soul is getting along well. It gave me great joy when some believers came and testified about your faithfulness to the truth, telling how you continue to walk in it. I have no greater joy than to hear that my children are walking in the truth. Dear friend, you are faithful in what you're doing for the brothers and sisters, even though they are strangers to you. They have told the church about your love. Please send them on their way in a manner that honors God. It was for the sake of the name that they went out, receiving no help from the pagans. We ought therefore to show hospitality to such people, so that we may work together for the truth. So compare that to what we just saw. He said to the beloved lady, don't show hospitality to people who aren't teaching the truth. Well, to Gaius, he says, I'm hearing great things about you, and the hospitality that you're showing is a good thing. Showing hospitality to those who are working together for the truth. I wrote to the church, but Diotrephes, who loves to be first, will not welcome us. So when I come, I will call attention to what he's doing. spreading malicious nonsense about us. Not satisfied with that, he even refuses to welcome other believers. He also stops those who want to do so and puts them out of the church. So we've got some guy that Gaius knows and that John knows who has decided that he is the keeper of the truth for that congregation. And he is protecting them from guys like John and Gaius. He doesn't want them to be involved. What does that usually mean? Something's messed up, right? There's something going on that he's protecting his group from, or protecting other people from telling his group that they're doing wrong. And as long as he can keep John out of there, he can keep doing whatever he's doing. But as soon as John makes a visit, then he's going to have a problem. So John says, I wrote him a letter. I wanted to come for a visit. Diotrephes says, no way, we're not allowing you to come here. Other members of the church that are folks that we know and that we appreciate, they wanted to go. Diotrephes won't let them come either. Diotrephes knows that if anybody connected with John shows up, then he's going to have a problem. So he's just telling the church to stay away from John and from Gaius and from anybody else from that camp. Now, go back to 2 John. What was John's purpose in writing 2 John? His purpose was to tell his group, don't be hospitable to this group. Now you look at 3 John and you find out that there's another group that says, don't be hospitable to John and his group. So there were already, we're talking about maybe 70, 80 AD, within 50 years, 60 years of the church beginning. There's already splits and subgroups that are not fellowshipping each other, and specifically saying to their group, I don't want you hanging out with them. I don't want you being around them. Those people are problematic. I've not had that trouble too much. In ministry, had one place, one time, one individual. And I wrote him a letter and told him that he had a lot of influence, but he seemed like he was playing the role of Diotrephes. And he told me if I ever wrote to him again, he would sue me. So I didn't ever write to him again. But there are people who feel, and I don't deny their desire to protect the church. I don't even deny the fact that they may feel like they're right in what they're doing. Surely, you couldn't feel that your life was full of sin and you were protecting it this way. You have to think you've got it right. But John and Gaius couldn't be right, and Diotrephes be right too. Right? There's definitely a division going on there, and maybe even a third group that John's talking about in 2 John. So it was already there. This isn't something that modern Christians have come up with. There were already schisms and splits and problems in the first century church. Knowing what we know about John, would it be too far outside the realm of possibility to say that Diotrephes was a Gnostic? It's at least possible. Those were the ones that John was hitting heads with the most. So if Diotrephes was trying to keep John from coming in and talking about Jesus, then it may be that Diotrephes was among that group that John was so worried about. Anyway, verse 11, dear friend, do not imitate what is evil, but imitate what is good. Anyone who does what is good is from God. Anyone who does what is evil has not seen God. Demetrius is well spoken of by everyone, and even by the truth itself. We also speak well of him, and you know that our testimony is true. So again, over and over, the word is truth, truth, truth. So there's a line of demarcation here. John is saying that the church where Diotrephes is, something's not truthful. Something's not right. Diotrephes is saying about John, I don't want that man around here. I don't want his followers around here. So he's hiding, covering up, stopping whatever it is that John might say concerning the truth. But then we get to talking about Demetrius. And Demetrius is well spoken of by everyone. And then a really interesting phrase. He's even spoken of by the truth itself. What does that mean? he's spoken well of by the truth itself. A couple of possibilities. One could be that he is so truthful, he's getting it right so well so often that he just melds in with the truth. That when you think of truth, you think of Demetrius. So the truth speaks well of him. Or it could be the Holy Spirit. That the Holy Spirit is telling John, Demetrius is a good guy. So when John is trying to figure out who can I trust, who can I talk to, who can we send people to that will take good care of them, well, Gaius will take good care of them. He'll help the cause. Demetrius is a good guy. He'll help the cause. Maybe the Holy Spirit is letting John know who these individuals are who are trustworthy, truthful individuals. And again, I have much to write to you, but I don't want to do so with pen and ink. I hope to see you soon so that we can talk face to face. The Greek is so we can talk mouth to mouth. So you just not even, no COVID distancing, just so we can get together and be together and talk about things that we need to talk about. Peace be to you. The friends here send their greetings. Greet the friends there by their name. In some of Paul's letters, we have these long lists of names, right? Greet so-and-so and so-and-so and so-and-so and so-and-so. The letter to Romans, I forgot some, I think there's 39, maybe, of different people that he greets. John does not do that. After naming names, he gets to the end and he doesn't name names. He just says, tell everybody I said hi. Right? He doesn't go into great detail with the people that he greets at the end of this particular letter. All right. That's kind of quick, but any thoughts about 2nd or 3rd John? All right. We will really shift gears then and talk about Jude next week. And Jude's a different kind of letter. It's very similar to 2 Peter chapter 2. So we've already looked at some of the things that are in Jude. But it's not a letter that's particularly, not to the chosen lady, not to my friend Gaius, but more of a general letter to people in general saying, here's the things you need to be thinking about. Here's some of the problems we've run into. But anyway, that's Jude, Lord willing, for next week.